What's up, guys? So I recently found out some information about King Tut that is absolutely hilarious, and of course, we're gonna make fun of him. But don't worry, this isn't gonna be a history lesson. None of what I say here can be used to impress your hot history teacher. So just because I don't know how educated all of you are, I'll just say collectively that you're a freshman in high school. And I don't mean kid genius freshman, I mean your parents had to pay for you to graduate middle school type of freshman. But because all of you may not know who King Tut was, I'll just give you the basics. He was a king in ancient Egypt. I know some of you think it's the name of that Steve Martin song that Trisha Paytas used on TikTok. But I can assure you he was a king way before any of that, and the only reason he's popular today is simply because his tomb was discovered. Like, the guy who found him wasn't like, yeah, let's open King Tut's tomb first. He's like, you're telling me there's an Egyptian king buried with all his treasure under all this rock? I don't care who he is, we're getting in there. Like, don't get me wrong, he did leave somewhat of a name for himself, like I'm assuming any king back then would, but apparently these historians back then felt the need to leave out that this man was a fucking medical nightmare. So I don't know why I was thinking of this, but I googled King Tut, I think, to see if he really died when he was 19, because I'm like, damn dog, you look like this, and you died as a teenager? That's a rough life to live for only 19 years, you feel me? But as I'm reading more and more about this kid, I came to the conclusion that whoever made this 3D model was being a bit too generous, because other than that flat-ass tabletop head he has, this man had a collection of health problems like they were fucking Pokemon cards. So when I read that he died when he was 19, I just assumed that that was the average age people lived back then. Like 20 years in ancient times probably felt like 200 years, so dying at 19 was perfect. But boy, was I wrong. So once you get past the basic information about him and start looking into this dude's family history, you're gonna start having second thoughts about these ancient geniuses. I'm not a genius, obviously. For starters, his family, the Tut family, has been known to have said that they wanted to keep their family's bloodline pure. In other words, King Tut's parents were brother and sister. Now obviously you guys know what could happen when two people that share the same gene pool share genes. Their baby comes out missing a few software updates, if you know what I mean. And it just so happens that King Tut was one of those babies. He was born with two pairs of genes, and to us one gene folk, that shit ain't right. But if I was being medically accurate, he apparently had Wilson-Turner X-linked disability syndrome, previously known as X-linked mental retardation. But that's not all. This man also had a wicked overbite, gynecomastia, frolic syndrome, Klinefelter syndrome, androgen sensitivity syndrome, craniosynostosis, Antley-Bixter syndrome. This man had it all. And if any of those sounded like I made them up, well then here's a short clip describing what all of those would look like when put into one human being.
The Real Tut probably had a severe overbite, a curved spine, a severely disfigured foot, extremely slim hips, a skewed face, and on top of all that, epilepsy. He also likely had pronounced breasts and lived most of his short life in extreme pain.
So I actually can't watch that without laughing. I just think that is the funniest shit ever, mostly because of how revered ancient Egyptian culture is. Like, yeah, y'all had your kingdoms and whatnot, but y'all were a bunch of inbred hillbillies. Like, there was so much incest going on in ancient Egypt, they make Alabama look normal. Like, dog, think about it. You really think King Tut was the only incest baby that whole royal kingdom had? I'm 100% sure that when aliens came down to help these guys and saw all the missing chromosomes, they're like, anybody who's smart enough, here are some tools to go evolve. Now do that anywhere but here. Like, dog, our presidents can barely do shit now to keep our country at peace. Now just imagine our president having fucking gynecomastia, frolic syndrome, Klinefelter syndrome, androgen insensitivity. We descend into chaos. Like, the more I talk about it, the more I feel like the reason King Tut was 19 when he died was because he was murdered. Like, there had to have come a time where someone was like, are we really letting the fucking hunchback of ancient Egypt be in charge of us? This man had epilepsy. How the fuck is your epilepsy gonna trigger when the sun is your light source? What, are they waving torches in front of his face when he gets them upset? They're like, you know what? They start waving a torch trying to give him a seizure. But I say he was killed though because they say that his skull was damaged but there was no evidence of thinning, so that must have meant that it was caused by a fatal blow. But that's not why I say that. It's the reasons they give as to why his skull may have been like that. Like, one of the reasons was that he just simply fell, which I guess considering his circumstances is a reasonable answer, but the next one was, what was it? They say his skull was like that because the young king was killed in a chariot accident. Yeah, because the scoliosis king who couldn't even stand up straight by himself was on a chariot. Like, just admit this man was murdered because nobody wanted to take care of him. They're like, God damn, at least the last king was able to wipe his own ass. And of course, I'm just assuming all of this because of the way King Tut was born, but like, there's no way that King Tut was the only one of his kind to become king of Egypt. Like, their whole family tree was just one big circle, and that's why the only thing they have to commemorate their culture are 3 stone triangles. Ooh, this one lines up with the sunset. These guys must be math geniuses. Yeah, how about you don't marry your sister and then worry about lining up your death castle with the sun? Like, there's a strong possibility that ancient Egypt was ran by a bunch of inbred retards. That's it, guys. Again, I found this to be hilarious because, like, what if 5,000 years from now they do a scan on Donald Trump's body and it turns out he's black? There'd be nothing we can do about that.